thank the Lord. It's not that much between us. A couple of years. God's been very good to me. Thank God. I did grow up in a Christian home, and I always knew that God was real. I always knew the goodness of God because I'd seen it. I'd seen it in my family's lives. And when I was about 13, I went to church one night, and it was a gorgeous church, and it was packed full of people. And the man, after the meeting, he came over to me and he started to tell me about Jesus, and he asked me, was I a Christian? And it was funny because I already thought I was a Christian, because my family was Christians and they was in church and I used to go to church with them. I just naturally thought I was a Christian. And it wasn't until he started to explain things to me I realised I wasn't. And he asked me that night, did I want to be a Christian? And I said no. I said I want to go away and I want to think about it. And I went away, and 3 weeks later I come back to the same church, and after sitting in a meeting like this here, and the man was preaching, and he was preaching about how Jesus loved me so much that he died on the cross for me, and my sin separated me from God, and that I needed to ask for forgiveness to ever to get into heaven. And it was like everything the man was saying made sense. Even though I'd been to church all them years, that night everything just clicked, everything fell into place, everything made sense, and I knew that I needed to be a Christian. And I can remember getting up, going to the toilet, and I was praying when I was in the toilet, and I was saying, Lord, if this is the right time for me to be a Christian, let the man who told me about you 3 weeks ago, let him come back to me tonight and ask me tonight, do I want to be a Christian? And God was so good, because God really did answer that prayer that night, because the man who told me the 3 weeks before, he made his way to me and he said, Celia, he said, the Lord's told me that you want to be a Christian. And that was good enough for me. I was 13 and I can remember saying the sinner's prayer, and I started to cry and I couldn't stop, and I shook from head to toe because the Lord touched me that night. Do you know that song, Jesus Come Along and He Touched Me? That night I was touched by God. Even though I was only 13, I never forgot that night. And I tried to walk my best I could like a child, like sometimes you're in the meetings, sometimes you're out the meetings. But when I was 17, I went to a mission in Kent, and it was like the Lord was calling me to, I don't know, for commitment. I had to get serious with the Lord, and I can remember being in a youth meeting, and I can remember one of the preachers preaching, and he was saying that you had to do it wholeheartedly, that you couldn't walk with God while being in the world and holding hands with the devil. And at the time, me and my cousin Liza had just passed our driving tests. We was making plans. We was going to Leicester to this dance. We was going to go here, there and everywhere. But in that meeting that night, I knew that God was talking to me, and I knew that I had to get serious with the Lord. And I went down to the front and I got prayer. And you know what? From that 17, I was 10. Won't tell you how old I am next week. I'm only young still. But I know that I've walked with the Lord to the best of my ability. I know the Lord's always had his hand on me. I know that through the good times and the bad times, God have never left me. There's been times when I've drifted from him, but he has never left me. And I've just got to say this quick because I don't want to cry, but all my life I had a fear. And my fear was losing my mum. And anyone will tell you who lived on Leverage Side that if she went to church on a Thursday night, I knew that the meeting would finish at 9:30, I'd give her an hour and she should be back by 10:30. And if she wasn't back, anyone on Leverage Side would tell you, I'd be on the phone saying, is my mum still there? Liza, can you check to see if my mum's still there? Because I had that fear of anything happening to her. And just before Christmas, she went home to be with the Lord. And I can't tell you how much peace the Lord has given me. I can't tell you how much that he carries me. He has carried me from the very minute it happened to now. And I know that it's only God that can carry me and is carrying me, because I knew that was my biggest fear. Do you know what I mean? And yet I know that one day I'm going to be in heaven and we're going to spend eternity together with Jesus. And I just can't tell you how glad I am.